If they can cancel me, they can cancel you. This remark was made by Nigel Farage, a controversial UK politician, after the esteemed Coutts bank said they would be closing his account. But this story goes deeper, and Farage is just a high-profile example of a worrying trend. UK banks are closing over 1,000 accounts a day. We are all at risk. Let's learn more and see if crypto can be the savior. Welcome back to the Coin Bureau. My name is Jessica, and thank you so much for joining me. As you might have noticed, I'm a new face at the Coin Bureau team after being a fan of the channel for quite some time. So if you could say hi by smashing the like button, dropping a hello in the comments, or subscribing if you haven't already, then I would be most grateful. Imagine this. You wake up one day to find your bank has closed its doors to you. In a world where cash is no longer king, that's a big problem. Once you fall off the banking bandwagon, it's near impossible to get back on. While banking the unbanked is a phrase that we hear often in crypto, the risk of being denied banking with little to no explanation is increasing. Just take a minute to consider just how difficult everyday life would be without access to a bank account and all the services that banking makes possible. You can't use an ATM, you can't pay for anything by card, you can't use online banking services, can't get a loan, you can't get a mortgage, you can't do online shopping. The list really does go on and on. Life becomes near impossible. And this story doesn't start, nor does it end in the UK. Anyone can be at risk of getting debanked. You might remember more than 200 bank accounts worth nearly $8 million were froze in Canada when the government used, and I quote, enough financial pressure to end the Canadian truckers' protest in 2022. Like him or not, Nigel Farage has had a huge influence on British politics. He was the driving force behind the UK Brexit campaign and is described by his biographer as the most significant politician of the century. Farage is a natural disruptor, and while almost everyone is surprised that the former stockbroker turned politician has become a voice for the many, he's certainly sunk his teeth into the financial freedom campaign. If this seems like a rich man's sob story though, then consider this. From 2021 to 2022, UK banks closed a staggering 343,000 consumer accounts. This is the banking scandal of 2023. Banks are unfairly closing accounts, and it impacts hundreds of thousands of new victims each year. For starters, let's look back at the catalyst of this conversation: Farage being dethroned or kicked out of his royal bank. In late June, Farage was told his account at Coutts was to be closed, supposedly for falling under the financial threshold. For reference, a Coutts account requires a minimum of £1 million deposited or £3 million of investments. So it's not your average bank by any means. According to Farage, the bank informed him that the account closure was a commercial decision. We now know that wasn't the case. Farage was able to obtain access to a report from Coutts' Reputational Risk Committee that said otherwise. The report raised concerns about Farage's, and I quote, xenophobic, chauvinistic, and racist views. The bank deemed maintaining an account with Farage as a risk to their reputation. Well, any reputational risk from having Farage as a customer has paled in comparison to that suffered by the bank for trying to get rid of him. The scandal not only cost the CEO of Coutts their job, but also the chief executive of Coutts' parent company, NatWest. Dame Alison Rose was forced out after leaking private information about Farage's situation to BBC journalists at a black tie event. The fallout went right to the top. Now, Coutts is far from being a bank for the people. Previous clients include Lord Byron, Charles Dickens, and every royal since George VI. A former Coutts executive, Gordon Bell, even said that in order to get an account at the bank, you had to be, and I quote, seriously special.
You could be exceptionally rich, and we still might not want to give you an account.
Because we British really do snobbery like no one else. So while we could argue that Coutts does have the right to blacklist clients who don't play by the rules, we can't help but remember a scandal from 2015. British tabloids got hold of the news that King Charles, who was the Prince of Wales at the time, was given £3 million in cash from the former Prime Minister of Qatar, and deposited this cash at none other than Coutts. Coutts even accepted the cash from His Royal Highness in a suitcase and a holdall, because nothing screams being KYC compliant like a bag full of British banknotes. And I suppose it probably helps if they have your mum's face on them. But the fact that this scandal involves a posh bank for very wealthy people hides a more troubling story. Coutts is part of NatWest Bank, a bank that serves 19 million people in the UK. To make matters worse, NatWest is 38% owned by the British state, after it got into difficulties in 2008. Now consider the fact that there are 1.2 million people living in the UK without access to banking. Those without access to modern-day banking in the UK are not only subject to logistical hurdles, but also what's referenced as a poverty premium. The best rates for utilities, mobile phones, and insurance are often reserved for those who sign up for contracts and pay through a direct debit. A report by UK fintech company Pocket reveals that the unbanked end up paying an additional premium of up to £485 annually, just for essentials like electricity, gas, and loans, simply because they lack a bank account. If that sounds incredibly unfair to you, that's because it is. On top of that, those who are financially excluded extend way further than those just without bank accounts. Ofcom research found that 1.5 million UK households remain offline. As we see a growing emphasis on digital banking and payment services, this could intensify the financial exclusion of lower-income residents who run higher risk of being unbanked. The landscape looks bleak. Underprivileged UK citizens are at risk of getting more and more detached from digital banking solutions, where you need an internet connection, a smartphone, and in some cases, money for a monthly banking subscription. Then you have those who do have banking, but are subject to more and more scrutiny and risk getting denied banking services. Case in point here is Farage. Farage shared the 40-page Coutts report with GB News, in which Coutts breaks down why they ended their banking relationship with him. In this report, the term Russia was mentioned 144 times. Brexit appeared 86 times, and the word racist came up 12 times. The report even cited a video clip retweet made by Farage of stand-up comic Ricky Gervais. As the scandal intensified, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak weighed in with this to say.
It wasn't right for people to be deprived of basic services like banking because of their views. Now, ultimately, this isn't about any one individual, it's about values.
The story of Farage is just a high-profile example of a harsh reality. Once you're pushed off the financial radar, it's near impossible to get back on. Farage has since reportedly been rejected from up to 9 other banks. Jeremy Hunt, the UK Chancellor, the guy in charge of the country's finances, revealed that he too has faced rejection when trying to open a bank account with Monzo last year. Hunt attributed this to his status as a politically exposed person, more commonly referred to as a PEP. So what does it mean to be a PEP? Well, the term came into play in the late 90s in response to a money laundering scandal in Nigeria and was aimed at preventing the abuse of the financial system by political figures. As of 2023, at least 90,000 people in the UK alone have been categorised as a PEP, leading to politicians and even members of their family being turned down banks. That's not all. UK anti-money laundering platform CompliAdvantage breaks down the long list of those likely to be flagged. LexisNexis Risk Solutions kindly provides a test yourself, are you a PEP quiz on their website. This is despite their website not offering much in terms of clear black and white guidelines on what could put you on the sanction list. Their website reads, and I quote, "The list of potential PEPs is expansive. Family members change and even regulation changes," which we didn't find to be exactly helpful. All you have to do is take to Reddit, and within UK legal threads, you'll find examples of people who are on the PEP sanction list for reasons completely unbeknown to them. The causes can be as simple as having the same name as someone who is a PEP themselves. Previously, only those PEP flagged were the ones at risk of getting unbanked. Well, not anymore. More and more examples of regular citizens getting blocked from banks for sharing their views online from traveling overseas, and even for investing in crypto. I personally had one bank account blocked simply for getting paid for working for a crypto exchange, and it seems the situation is getting worse. The heightened control that banks are having on their users and their accounts is starting to look all too similar to China's social credit system, the somewhat big brother of financial surveillance, and the complete opposite to financially free democracy. For those who aren't familiar, China's social credit system operates by collecting and analyzing data from businesses while enforcing punishments for bad behavior, and of course providing rewards for positive behavior. Punishments can range from publicly naming and shaming all the way through to restrictions on pretty essential services like flights and train travel. The whole thing is pretty terrifying. The increasing threat of CBDCs also confirms this narrative that we will no longer be in control of what we do with our money. If you'd like to learn more about CBDCs, and I'd encourage you to do so, you can watch Guy's most recent video on them. I'll leave the link in the description. Now, as it stands today, there is an increasing resentment towards the banks, which Farage will know how to capitalize on. It could bring a brand new wave of consumer protection, regulations, and even push a pro-crypto narrative. Since being debanked, Farage has launched accountclose.org for, and I quote, those who have been unfairly treated by banks and financial services. It gives advice on what rights you have as a consumer and legal advice without the weighty legal jargon. I'll also leave a link to that in the description, and I highly recommend you to check it out if you're UK-based. Farage hasn't been the only one springing into action. The UK government, as of June 2023, moved forward with the Financial Service and Market Act, aimed at, and I quote, providing the right balance between the customer's right to free speech and the bank's right to manage commercial risk. So UK consumers now have more resources and protection to challenge their banks if worse comes to worse. But we also expect Farage to use his influence to promote another alternative to the traditional monetary system. This is where cryptocurrencies enter the discussion. There's a need now more than ever to democratize finance and leverage peer-to-peer transactions that do not run the risk of intermediaries, like said banks, putting the brakes on you being able to access your funds. Despite the UK FCA warning that crypto investors, and I quote, might lose all of their money, UK crypto users grew by nearly 1.5 million last year, with around 5 million Brits now holding crypto. Farage himself has even been orange-pilled for quite some time. He spoke at the Bitcoin Amsterdam conference in 2022 against the establishment and had this to say about Bitcoin.
We're seeing a similar type of insurgency. This is an economic insurgency, and it's being driven and led by people who are worried about the sheer size, scale of big government.
He also stated that there's going to be a very, very big change here over the next 2 or 3 years, and Bitcoin will become a trusted means of exchange. And with this remark, I have to agree with him. We're moving away from a cash-driven society and towards CBDCs. And with the increasing risk of being unbanked, we can't help but see how this scary, dystopian future is a bullish use case for crypto adoption. This conversation might have started with a boutique bank and a Brexiter, but it doesn't end here. People deserve to have free movement of their funds. And that can't happen with the tightening banking restrictions that we have today. Cryptocurrencies ultimately are the answer to some of the biggest concerns we've discussed in this video. So that's all from me, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Are you someone that has fallen victim to bad banking? What impact do you expect this to have on crypto adoption? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can like, subscribe, and share this video with friends and family. Also, if you're looking to continue your crypto journey and you might be looking for a crypto wallet to keep your crypto safe or an exchange that won't dent your profits with fees, you can head over to the Coin Bureau Deals page. It's got the biggest discounts on some of the best crypto wallets and up to $40,000 of bonus airdrops on offer at the best crypto exchanges, exclusively for viewers of the Coin Bureau. Well, thank you all for watching. My name is Jessica, and I'll see you all again soon.